Welcome back to the Tier 1 podcast. I am your host, Brent Tucker, owner of FRCC. Go to frcc.shop and use promo code Tier1 to get 15% off the world's best coffee, cigars, and bourbon.
And I'm Drew Tucker, late night K-Cup maker at First Responder Cigar, Coffee, and Cask Company. Guys, I invite you to join our Patreon, brought to you by Cobalt Kinetics. There you'll get behind the scenes exclusive content. There's a workout fitness forum, there's a gun forum, and there's a weapons expert from Cobalt Kinetics ready to answer all of your weapons questions. So join the Patreon.
And as always, this episode is brought to you by Human Performance TRT. Go to hp-trt.com. Use promo code Tier1 to get 20% all of your testosterone and peptide needs. Let's do it, Drew.
For the Special Forces Rescue.
Welcome to the Tier 1 podcast.
This is amazing, dude. Check this out, right?
And with us today, we have former SEAL Team 6 operator and sniper, Chris Fettes. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. First things first, you brought me some gifts, and I want to give you some. This is a gift from Tasty Gains.
Nice.
So you can travel with creatine, not have to worry about bringing powders with you.
Yeah.
I do. I use them. They're great. This one is from, we go, edit this out a little bit. And this one's from Cloud Defensive.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Little light for you.
Nice.
You might
Thank you.
Might need it traveling with young ones and dark places.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I'm a big fan of a white light, tactically
Yeah.
done right. But even as a civilian, I think everyone should have a 1,000 lumen light always at their disposal.
It needs to be in your kit.
Absolutely.
For sure, your everyday kit.
And my favorite gift, because I just love it, Brotherhood Blades does a awesome knife.
Dude, thank you.
It's got the Tier 1 logo engraved to commemorate your time on the show, and it's all blacked out like the everything I got's black multicam, so it fits. I really, really like it.
This is nice. I've been seeing their stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I got them making me a custom hatchet as well, and I'm really looking forward to that. So anyway, I just wanted to give you some gifts. Say thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Yeah, this is awesome. You guys are not stealing this one from me.
Let's get right into it. You joined the Navy. What year did you join the Navy?
2004, the beginning of 2004.
Why'd you join the Navy? What pushed you to join the military in general?
In general, I came from a family of military, so I think it almost subconsciously was there when I got to a moment, in my teenage life that I realized I wasn't really doing much, and I probably wasn't really gonna do much, or I just didn't realize what I wanted to do at all, and that's just kind of a time where we're all trying to figure ourselves out, right?
Yeah.
The college life wasn't really in the books for me. But now I'm grateful for that. But then 9/11 happened when I was 19, so that kind of was the precipice for just even thinking about it. So once I started to think about it, it kind of came together. I always respected my grandfather, who was retired as a colonel in the 82nd.
Really?
Yeah, and so I was always fascinated with that. I used to always, try getting into his bedroom so I could see the shadow box and all of his awards and ask him questions. And so I think that's something I've never really talked about much before, but I do have a lot of memories of him sharing. Not so many stories. He really was quieter about his stories, but his career and some of the places he'd been. He met my grandmother.
Yeah.
On one
His
of his
experiences
tours.
more than his stories.
His travels. His travels. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my dad, my stepfather, who is my dad, was a mechanic in the egress shop for F-16s in the Air Force. And so he was, that was pretty cool too.
Was your grandfather alive when you joined?
Yes, he was. He was so proud of me.
I bet.
Yeah. He didn't have any inkling that I was ever going to do that. Before that, he just was like, oh, he's interested in my stuff, but he's just, just as kind of a skateboard punk kid,
So your grandfather got to see you join
Yes.
after his amazing service.
Yeah, they flew out to the graduation of buds and everything for me.
I don't think I'm going to push my son to serve. But
Yeah.
that being said, I think if my son kind of ignored that and joined, it'd still be one of the proudest days of my life as a father. But so would him not serving and and going on to not do those things and feel like I did enough for the family so you can enjoy the real American dream. How do you feel about that for you and your two sons?
I've thought about that a lot because before this age, they're basically 12 and 13 now.
Yeah.
They're starting to understand what dad did, and the kids at school, they know now. They're like, hey, they know the differences between the units and the tiers and different types of militaries, and they're starting to see me on YouTube and stuff like that. At their age, they think you're famous if you're on YouTube. So it's fun for me, but I also know their personalities more, where, the older one, Braddock, is more, not necessarily reserved, but he's more of an analytical thinker. Mm-hmm. So he thinks ahead on things, which is a good thing.
Right.
And Ethan is more of, my adventurous spirit, where he just jumps into things, which is awesome, but also more dangerous. So I don't know. I have an idea of which one might get interested. Right. But
if you could somehow combine the two.
Yeah. Which I think that when you have kids, I realize it's like I've got a little bit of both of that, but they are more divided on my two separate traits, or my different traits in their own personalities.
Yeah.
And then there's some new things in their personalities that I never had that I see. Yeah. But as far as your question, I expect that one or the other or both may get interested, and just knowing the dangers of that life, which is like what I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm like, man, there were so many close calls. I can't imagine losing either of them, and all the experiences that I saw of fathers that lost their sons was like, I had no idea how overwhelming that was in probably those moments. And so of course I'll support it, and I hope they do something awesome and not be like some TikTok, YouTube thing, or if they do want to, whatever they do, I'll support. And I know what I feel about the danger of it. That's just what will come with it.
Well, without talking to you, beforehand about this question, something tells me, I hope, and you probably hope too, that they take over a national level ice cream business.
Absolutely. That's part of it. That's the dream. At least there's an option there. There's two options. Now there's a bigger business side of it, or there's just the old ice cream shop, which, I intend to be, some old geezer somewhere on some dairy farm in Petaluma, California, just, making ice cream at home and chilling. So
to bring it back, you joined in 2004, but it seems safe to say that the memories of 2001, just you couldn't shake them, and
it was so profound. Even in that moment, not really. I was doing like Muay Thai on my off time, and I was boxing a lot and keeping active, and I was just working kind of odd jobs, trying to figure out what I was going to do, into my 20s, and then that happened, and I was like, wow, this is just a really profound moment, and something that I felt. Suddenly, I felt this like deep sense of duty and defensiveness towards not just our country, but all of the people. And, that's a whole nother conversation of the fact that we're so divided nowadays. But, I don't know if you remember, but like at least for a few months after that, nobody cared about any of that stuff for a minute. Yeah. And I'm like, man, I wish that sustained over the long term, where we realize we're all more similar than different.
I know. I miss it. I've talked about it on the show, especially our lives, several times. I do. I miss the unity of September 12th, and I long for it. To be honest with you,
yeah.
You wouldn't be the first SEAL on this show to tell me that someone, whether it be a dad or grandfather, served in the Army.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting to me because I didn't have to make that choice. My dad didn't serve, but it seems like the Army would be your natural draw. Why?
Yeah.
Why the Navy with the Army in your past?
That's probably a simpler answer than you think, because for me, it was just like, hey, if I'm going to go in the military, I know he did this in the Army. I don't know anything about the 82nd Airborne. My dad's in the Air Force. It's cool, but I didn't, I want to be out. He was in a hangar a lot doing what he loves. He's always been really crafty, and he's like a master carpenter. He's made all the furniture in our house, awesome. And I wish I took more time to learn that from him, but I was too busy rebelling and skateboarding around town.
Yeah.
But it literally came down to a memory of just a group of friends who actually I had one friend in that group named Donald that I don't even remember much about anymore, but he was always talking about being a Navy SEAL. And I was like, I didn't even realize what it was, but of any of the movies that I never watched, I never watched the old school like Navy SEALs movie. It was Tears of the Sun at some point, some year that I watched. And I remember the scene with that sniper as the point man, and I was fascinated with that because he got shot, and I remember that his response, when the lieutenant came up to him to help him and pull him back, was like, "I'm sorry, sir. That was a dumb mistake." And I was like, I don't know why that's so awesome, but I want to do that.
I haven't thought of Tears of the Sun as a Navy SEAL movie in forever.
Yeah.
And it was a great movie. I can't, and we talk about, again, on the lives, like it's, we talk about a bunch of different subjects, or even with, guests that are here, and they'll say movies that influenced them. I don't know why Tears of the Sun never comes up. That was a great movie.
Yeah. It was a hostage rescue kind of thing. It kind of reminded me of Predator, where they've got to get away, a long distance with this hostage. And
I'm going to rewatch it now.
Dude, I'm gonna go rewatch it with them. I don't think we've watched it together. We try to do, classics where you got to watch this, you got to watch this, and they dig it.
Yeah.
We do Aliens because I'm an Aliens fan.
Okay.
But Tears of the Sun, it's actually good to talk about now because of how profound of what's going on with Bruce Willis, and how he now at this point doesn't even remember that he was this famous, just amazing actor, one of my favorites of all time. And it's good you brought that up, because it's like, almost like I'm like now more proud that was the movie, that inspired me, because I don't dig Hollywood that much and all of their shitty values, but there's certain ones like Denzel and him that were just solid dudes, solid humans.
I've had this stance before. I will always have this stance. We did a Between Two Guns episode before this. It's always fun to some degree. Sometimes I think it's a little played out actually, but to talk about SEALs writing books or whatever it be with movies.
Yeah, I get that.
The truth is, I'm a big fan of it. I read those books before becoming a Green Beret, and I read Green Beret books, Navy SEAL books. I read every book I could get a hold of during the GWAT. The way the Tears of the Sun affected you, the way Navy SEALs and Charlie Sheen affected a whole generation. Like, that's a good thing, as long as those books are written the right way with the truth, and be like, hey, this is high moral integrity guys are out there fighting evil. They are good. America is good. This is how we fight wars. This is the price, and you need to know it comes with a price. I love it. I love it, and young men should read those books and see those movies. I'm for them.
And all the hate that's out there is funny, that's going on, and some of it's justified. But to that point, what you just said is like, my opinion is that too, where it's like, it doesn't matter what industry it is, because the CIA guys, it's all glorified and write books, and that should be the most secretive of anything. And so when they're like, well, they should be, right, you're like, well, it's worth a discussion, but as long as like the right way, meaning to me, like it has some value that it's trying to teach you in the story or the way that it's written, as opposed to it's just this glorifying thing for one person or the author of it or whatever. Those are the ones I think that, and there's very few of those that have now divided the people that have this expectation of what we're supposed to be, whether it's during or after. And then when we go against that expectation in those rare cases, then it's like, well, they all and it just gets generalized. Right. And generalization, just like anything else you talk about, is the opposite of intelligent, in my opinion. So yeah, it was Tears of the Sun, and
It's awesome.
yeah, but just like you said, Predator and Commando, you like watch all those awesome movies, and hear me out on this one. This is funny, and I knew this when we named him. My older son's name is Braddock, which is Colonel Braddock in Missing in Action, and that there's a connection there that I knew, but also the Cinderella Man, James J. Braddock, the boxer. We thought it was just an awesome common English last name, and me and my wife loved it when we heard it. And so I always have a kind of tie to.
It's a strong name.
I have a connection the same way with my Army buddies and stuff, that the competition to me in rivalry is still friendly, and so that toxic zone that it moves into, I just mock that for fun, because it drives people crazy in the comments. They just go nuts.
It is funny. It's like that. It's like that two brothers. Like, I'll give you a hard time about writing a book, but if someone else gives you a hard time about writing a book, it's like we both look at wait, who are you? Like, what have you done? You haven't written a book. You haven't wrote a book because you haven't done anything worth writing a book. You know, it's that type. And I think people sometimes see that and think it's a little more serious than it is.
Take it way too serious. And anybody that has a story, which everybody does in the world, and you want to write a book, you should, because there's stories. You go to the bookstore, look at all those damn books. What are you saying? Why should we not, if you have something to tell? You know?
Yeah, really, that it would be, when you look at it again, like through the other lens of it. By not writing a book and not sharing these stories, like you're keeping that, from the world, from future generations. You're keeping the truth and just letting other people assume that they know your story or what you do.
Yeah, it's just one of the many layers of documenting wars and history, in my opinion. Right. And you layer those all together, we try to get the most accurate version of history through time, and then there's a bunch of garbage in between, obviously, too.
So when the History Channel does it, we love it.
Yeah.
But when a SEAL does it, it's shame on him.
Yeah.
I mean, make that make sense.
And generals and admirals can do it, then it's true.
Don't get me started on that. So you sign up and you go. You sign a BUDS contract.
Yeah, I signed for the BUDS contract. Back then, you got like $2,000 if you made it through BUDS.
Nice.
I think it's like $500,000 now or something crazy.
I hope so.
No, it's gone up a little bit.
I know that's a joke, but I hope so.
I think like a year or two after I joined, we heard it went up to like $40,000 they just needed more guys. So it was more of an incentive, but I'm like, dang, I could have used $40,000 the first few years of my time. But anyways, so lucky enough to have gotten through everything on the first try, not get rolled back or sent back or anything. Yeah. So A school, because we had ratings back then.
Right. What was your A school?
It was at Damneck, so it was operations specialists, so like radar, ship radar, and navigation type stuff, dead reckoning type stuff.
I hate to hear that to some degree, but if I'm off a little bit, let me know. I think it was Alex West that we had on, and his A school was commo. And I was like, well, at least you have an A school that you learn something about radios, and that translates.
Yeah.
So many times I hear a guy that their A school just doesn't really seem to have any weight to carry over to your next job, and that's unfortunate.
The only weight that mine had was the chief that was in charge of our class, like that department of, just our school, like essentially like the principal of the school. Mm-hmm. Was a wannabe SEAL guy. So he treated us that way and acted and dressed that way and was like always in camis when he never should have been in camis, in the schoolhouse. And I just remember going, man, I was so afraid of that guy. And then later on, there was a deployment where he came out and supported us when I was at Dev Group.
Oh,
and I was
really?
like, I remember you.
Did he remember you by chance?
I don't think he remembered me, but when I explained it to him, he was super nice about it. And I was like, I didn't bring that up, but I was like, I just remember, you had us like scrubbing the floors on weekends and after hours and just doing BUD style stuff. But I appreciated the BUD style stuff now.
Yeah. You go to BUDS. And you said you didn't recycle anything in BUDS?
No, I got through. Awesome. I had a hard time at the end of third phase, but I didn't get recycled and made it through. The rest of BUDS, I don't want to say like cruise through it, but I actually It sucked, but I enjoyed it. It was like my first opportunity in life to have this like real validating, like brotherhood feeling, camaraderie thing with guys in the class. It was awesome.
So I'm guessing on your timeline, you're probably in buds somewhere around 2005, or was it in 2004?
Yeah, it was like, now it was towards the end of 2004,
Okay.
right after boot camp and, winter hell week going into 2005.
So, and that time frame, the internet's getting full of more information. When I talk to a little bit older guys that went through in the 90s or real early 2000s, like 1 or 2, it wasn't there. I'm guessing you had information that you could have accessed. Do you feel like you knew a lot about buds and what was coming up, or did you go in pretty blind?
I learned about the PT tests and like what to focus on. And, back then there was not a lot of mentorship programs and things. There was like, they call it the scrub program, where if you were going to buds and your division let you out, you could go, your A school for certain people. Mine was at Dam Neck, but you could do certain A schools that you were at the schoolhouse you were doing those PT tests for buds contracts at Great Lakes at boot camp. Yeah. And so then you were getting practice with swimming and mentorship from a SEAL. I didn't have that. And so I trained as much as I could, knowing the PT test that I learned from that book, Warrior Elite. Okay. And that really was the only book that I read about buds.
Here at the Tier 1 Podcast, we're excited to have Tasty Gains as a sponsor, a company with values that aligns with ours. I take their products every day, 3 times a day. And if it wasn't a product that I didn't take personally and believe in, and a company with integrity, then they wouldn't be sponsors on this show. Creatine helps the body produce more ATP, which is an energy molecule that your entire body runs on. It helps improve your physical and mental performance in all aspects of life. Let's be honest, creatine powder sucks to take every day. With the creatine gummies, you can take them with you anywhere, and they taste great. Every batch is third-party tested, so you know you're getting exactly what you pay for. Go to tastygains.com and enter the promo code TIER1, that's TIER, the number 1, and get 20% off your order.
I'm a little bit torn. I'm interested in your opinion about this. We have these prep programs, and I feel like they're giving them the answers to the test to some degree. At the end of the day, like, you have to go out there and you have to perform that, and I get that. I do think there's something to be said about just and it's never really been kept a secret, usually, like what the PT standard is, or that there's a 50-meter swim in BDUs. Like, there's some gateway tests that are common knowledge. But to know too much about what you're going to get into, I think it takes away a little bit to really see what's inside a person when they don't know what's coming, and they just have to deal with it. But it does increase the numbers, but I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know. What do you think about those?
I think it could go both ways. I saw a lot of guys they practiced stuff so much. Even in A school, we had a group of guys that were like always doing beach runs on top of the workouts we were already doing. And I was like, dude, I'm not going to go. I'm going to do the program, and also recover myself too, and not, I was like shin splints and things. And so I think it also builds a lot of anticipation if guys are too far ahead of it and they're thinking about it for so long. And then when it comes time to do it, if they haven't really visualized the worst case scenario, when the worst case scenario happens, they kind of freak out and bolt to the surface of the pool, or panic in some other situation. And I was grateful that I didn't have too much anticipation.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's kind of like knowing too much about the inside of a structure, in CQB, because
you're gaming it.
It doesn't matter. To us, it doesn't matter. But once you give me the inside of the structure, now I have this idea of what it's supposed to look like. And when that doesn't mirror up, it's a problem. If I just knew nothing at all, we'd just take it as it comes.
Yeah, and I'm sure you remember too, if you guys were doing runs after runs after runs, it got annoying if you were doing that from the same entrance, or and you're like, I just wanted to switch it up on purpose, because you kind of get bored with it and go, now I know for sure our brains are gaming this on what's the best way what's the answer for every little moment of those runs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's awesome that you didn't recycle anything. Luckily, when it came on the white side of soft, whether it be the Q course or dive school, that was my biggest fear, recycling something. And then and to me, kind of the same thing. None of it was ungodly hard, but I didn't want to do it again.
Yeah, dude, I couldn't even. Now that I'm older too, I go, man. Now I think back on those things that from a different age perspective, and go, I would quit if I even had to think about that right now. But you're willing to die back then.
Oh, for sure, absolutely, absolutely.
Did you cycle through everything the first try?
Yeah, I was first time.
Thank
go
God that
on
answer to that was
everything.
yes.
Although
I would say if you were like,
I've had to say this before, and it's fine. I did go to unit selection twice, but I call the first one a recce. I didn't. You know, I was just preparing myself for the real one.
yeah.
Because I didn't fail anything.
Yeah, that's different too. Like, I don't need to say any like thing about it, but one of my greatest team leaders at Debriefs was he went through twice and was just is what it is, you know.
I'm not embarrassed at all about going back twice to that course. If there's one you're gonna do twice, I'll take that one.
Yeah.
But I didn't think any of the other courses I'd been to before that, I would have been upset because I didn't, even though they were challenging, I didn't think they were bigger than me, if that's a good way to explain it. Like I knew I was capable of passing it. So if I didn't, it really would have been all my fault. And that would have been a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Is when you know you could have or should have.
I think it's probably maybe because there's so many questions out there, and like the public per se, the internet of people that think they know anything about anything because of the select amount of information. Like we talk about it, and there's certain of us that are in media, but I just thought about this the other day where I go, man, when I go mess around with like who's better, SEAL Team 6 or Delta Force, and make a post just to see the comments blow up with
just
people
watch the chaos.
that people that like a lot of them can't even probably go even in the military for you know, or at least get to a point where they even would get to experience that. The ones that are like more negative and hateful about it. And I actually now enjoy watching it. But the point being is that like, even with all of the information out there, we just talked about books, it's still only like a fraction of a percent of anything any of us ever experienced in whole. It's still only 1% of that life, you know?
You can read all the books, you can watch all the podcasts, and you have a better idea, but you really can't fathom what going through it is like. And I'm glad you mentioned that.
I think it's more intentional collectively between all of us guys, whether we're embellishing type of guys or full-blown lying guys or ones that are honest telling the truth. Is like, it's still, it's only a fraction of that life. And you know what, when you experience, like, you got to be about that life.
For sure. It's funny you mentioned that. We just had Dunk Bailey on, which was a 2-2 SAS guy.
Yeah.
And he talked about his selection a lot. A lot of their selection stuff is fairly open source. So he talked a lot about selection. And and every now and again I'd say that's like our selection, but they have jungle phase, which we don't have. There are a lot of similarities, a lot of differences. And this guy goes into the comment section and lays out exactly what selection is like for the SAS, and then lays out what he believes is selection and OTC for the unit. Yeah. And you could tell this guy actually he's read a lot. Like he's knowledgeable. But when I read it, I'm like, that's
from a book.
That's right. That's actually you don't know as much as you think you know. Yeah. But man, he put it out there like it was truth, and he knew exactly the difference between the two. And it's just kind of funny.
I think the upside is that it's a good thing that those people are so into it that they study it. So
I do too. It's humbling and it's awesome. Like if you're going to be interested in something, what a great thing to be interested in men who put their lives on the line for their brothers and their country.
Your opinions are more validated if you've done a little bit of work.
Yeah. I'm not anti-sports by any means, but way more important than learning about a guy who swings a bat for a living for $150 million. I mean,
and knowing every little detail about that dude's life,
Yeah.
you know, and statistics and, you know,
Yeah. The we'll swing it back here to your career.
Yeah.
You ended up going to SEAL Team 10. Is that correct?
Yeah.
SEAL Team 10. At what point do you know you're going to SEAL Team 10?
Towards the end of all of our qualification course, our SQT
Okay.
and SEAL qualification training, there's another 10 months, I think, or so of more gentlemen's courses, meaning like you're not really going to fail out unless you make some critical mistake or some dire mistake. But you're really learning like winter warfare is part of that, static line, you know, your diving, shooting courses and things like that. And then towards the end of that, they start to figure out what teams need, what spots, and kind of give the guys an opportunity to choose which coast you wanted to go to and make little deals. If you didn't like where you got, you know, and somebody wanted to switch and stuff like that, that was all kind of available.
Okay.
I actually did that. I wanted to go to the East Coast.
Yeah.
And a guy really wanted to stay on the West Coast with his brother, so we swapped orders.
Okay.
And also back then, the SDV team, which Hawaii and Virginia Beach, the mini submarine team, delivery vehicle team, was like every other class.
Okay.
The majority of guys were going to that, and so I landed on one where we didn't have to do that. So only a couple of guys went to that, and the rest went to the teams.
You're talking about jump school. Am I understand it right? Did you go to jump school with Kyle Morgan? Or did
No,
you do something with Kyle Morgan?
Yeah, I met Kyle Morgan and didn't even really realize it, and especially didn't realize we were going to become besties later in life, like we are now. When I was in the tandem bundle course for your guys' course.
Oh, that jump course.
The Delta bundle course.
Okay.
Which that was the closest I ever came to dropping out, and probably should have gotten dropped out when Braddock was due to be born during the course.
Yeah.
And we needed the quals just really bad.
Yeah.
We needed like one or two more quals to be ready for standby after deployment.
Okay.
And instead of the jockeying around that they'd have to do between squadrons at the time. So I went and really struggled, and the pressure was on. My cadre was one of the most badass Red Squadron dudes ever. And he came to Silver to help commission the team.
Okay.
And was like, I'm going to be your guy, and you're going to be the best in the class. And I was like, oh, fuck. And then I was like the last in the class. Like I just did not handle that well. And it doesn't matter what's going on in your life. Like that was true, but you still, it's tier 1, dude. You got to go. So
the tandem bundle course was something I shied away from it. I wanted nothing to do with it. Now, don't get me wrong. Like if they were like, hey, we need someone, you are a proficient jumper, you're going. I mean, I wouldn't have fought it at all. But let me tell you this, I wasn't volunteering for it.
I didn't know what I was getting myself into with that one, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I was a jump guy. I was pretty newer in the jump. You know, I didn't have enough jumps. I mean, you probably need to be really proficient at that course, more like, I don't know, 300, 400, 500 at least. I had barely 200. And I was excited to be a jump SME, but that for sure was a subject matter expert that I forced myself into as a recce guy to go, man, I'm going to make myself enjoy this. Right. And then I never really did. I never was really that. I was just as uncomfortable with it as I was with breaching, but more comfortable than I was with breaching.
Yeah.
So selection was fine with door poppers, and, you know, had some experience down at Little Pete's and doing cool breaching, you know, courses. But I was never comfortable with, you know, building charges, and, you know, I carried minimal grenades as a recce guy. I just was like, man, explosions just wasn't me. I was more, you know, so, but jumping, I was like a little more comfortable with. So we went, I went and did that, and that was definitely, you're right, it's like Mantown. It was just like it's just adrenaline dump every day, all day, and just super technical and scary, to be honest with you. Everything starts 3 a.m, you know, and you're just smoked.
I hated those days.
Yeah.
Any jump week or jump training.
Yeah.
The 3 a.m. start is just tough.
Honestly, I did enjoy some elements of jumping, but not as a whole. Not like the guys who were really proficient and get really nasty at it and really thoroughly enjoy it. Yeah. You know, I was always a little envious of those guys and how much they enjoyed it, because they really love it, you know.
We'll put a pin on this but like anything else, you did something else to separate yourself and I tell people this, if you're in the military or college, at a job, get as many certifications as you can.
Yeah.
Because you don't know when it's going to come back to be beneficial to you. You don't know the ones you really need. You don't really know the ones you don't need. And that one's going to come back and be important for you later on in your career. So we'll definitely get back to that. Going back to the white side, when you show up to SEAL Team 10, what year is this?
So we wrapped up around towards the end of 2005 and started the cycle and it was like the very beginning of those long, 16-month, 18-month cycles, a year and a half workups, full workup. Those guys were not even yet back from deployment, and, some of the, they were doing recovery for the Red Wing thing on that deployment at the end of it. So they were coming back from that whole thing, and we were the new guys kind of waiting there to join up.
Yeah, I don't talk about this a whole lot because no reason to until it becomes relevant.
Yeah.
My first deployment was 2005 into Afghanistan. Got there winter, and we staged at a little camp inside Bagram called Camp Oulet.
Okay. Yeah.
And we were there right when Red Wings happened.
Yeah.
And there was that turnover.
Yeah.
And they had laid out all of the those guys' equipment and their tough boxes. Camp Oulet was their camp. Actually, it's either where they stayed or where they brought all their stuff to. There was a Navy SEAL element there, and it was tough to watch those guys lay out all their dead friends' equipment, and this is me going to combat for the first time.
Yeah,
and I'm in Bagram still. I haven't even gone forward yet. Going, wow, this. Combat's real. Like it's not real in the books. It's not real in training. But when you see that, and it wasn't, I say real yet because I hadn't experienced it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just one of those, like, another phase closer to see the reality of combat. It was tough to watch those guys deal with that.
Yeah, that must be tough. The early, not just the GWOT guys in general, I think that it was. I'm grateful for it now, but yeah, it really was that experience of like, all right, you're going to your team and this is popping off, and you go on deployment. It starts, you're in it, and even for us, like, we had this really tragic thing happen that affected all of us going into that, knowing, hey, a lot of us are going to be going to Iraq right now, and some Afghanistan because it's already a couple years into that,
right? And
we had this amazing officer in our SQT class who was like a rugby star at the academy. When guys pass, you say great things about him, but it's always hard because he was like a great dude, and big guy too. So he's like 6'5". He was the big guy of the class, but like the fun loving big guy who was like a stud wrestler, right. Couple of the guys that were getting into jiu-jitsu early on would wrestle with him, and he would just, not hurt them too much, but give them a workout.
Right.
Nicest personality ever, but stud. And he was meeting up with, we all were excited to graduate and go to our teams. He was going to Team 10 as well with a few of us.
Okay.
And we were like kind of caravanning across, but he kind of left a night or two early to jet across, and he was so excited to meet up with his fiance at the time, who's a great friend of mine now.
Okay.
And in our community there in Virginia Beach, and she's been there the whole time, Van Wilson, and he overcorrected while he was sort of nodding off in Nevada at some point, excited to get there, and flipped the car and passed away. The craziest thing was that we all heard this tragic news and like, oh my God, it was very devastating for the class to the point where all the teams we were going to, and they all knew about him.
Yeah.
Because the cadre of buds and they all loved this guy. Like, this guy's legendary already, just in selection,
right.
The way that he is. And so they let those teams know, hey, these guys are all going to go to his hometown and be there for the services and the family for like a week and a half or two. Mm-hmm. And we all did that. And then we went and checked into our teams. But on the way across, me and the guys that were going to Team 10 stopped at where that happened and realized this crazy thing that was connected, which was our class was 254 in buds, and the mile marker where this happened was 254 right there.
No way.
So
That's crazy.
his buds class, because they join SQT after, because they go all do their officer things and then go into the next SQT class. So he technically was in 253, but was in SQT class 254 or our class. So that was just a crazy connecting thing there. And, you know, I truly believe that God needed him as a warrior up there. So, because it just didn't make any sense otherwise for it to be that way. But, yeah, so that was like my first experience with any loss. And then joining into my team and that Red Wing stuff, those guys came back and you heard all those stories and everything about that. And then start the workup with my team.
I tell you what, it's, as you know, losing friends in combat is tough. Of course, it's tough to some degree, but when they fall in combat, it makes it. It's going to sound weird to some people, but it makes it a little bit easier because you understand what happened. And everyone knew the risk.
Yeah,
and this is war. This happens. I also lost a friend to a vehicle accident, and that one to me was harder to take because it seemed senseless. Because it seemed like it didn't have to happen, or they didn't go out like a warrior, although they were. Yeah. And that those ones for you would. It's hard to some degree hard to explain, but they do. They hurt a little bit worse.
Yeah. Exactly. Because we all go into it knowing, man, could happen. We all accept it. It's part of the deal. But I feel like what you're saying a little bit about now when guys take their own lives, especially when I find out that there was like heavy drinking going on in that moment and they were out.
Right.
This one happened recently, actually, I'm talking about, and you're like, man, however he was feeling wrapped up inside, whether people didn't know or not, if that always brings it out more and makes it just that much easier per se to do it, right, with the inhibitions and everything being affected. And it feels like that, where it's like, it's not senseless or needless because of the way the guy was feeling, but it feels that way because it didn't have to happen, as opposed to the combat, which kind of has to happen, Right. And I mean that in a way it's like, there's mistakes and things that happen, but it's combat,
Exactly. I just feel the need to say this because it's just impactful to me. A lot of people are going to watch this episode and I want them to hear this. I've never met anyone that was in a bad situation and ever told me, "Hey, Brent, life wasn't going real good, and then I started drinking a lot, and you know what? Things got better." And that's not me, necessarily judging, anyone, because I get it, and that's human nature, and I do get it. But I also think if people go to bad times and they hear things like that, it's just logical, even though they know it, but it never gets told out loud.
Yeah,
maybe they'll hear that and be like, you know what, I'm not going to start down this road because there's no way it helps. It
just numbs. So you're already numb, and now you're just adding numbness to it in a moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and I hate to hear that. When you get there, and did you go to Afghanistan first?
Or Iraq first.
What and in the 2005 time frame?
Yeah, we got there 2006. Oh, sorry, it was like towards the end of 2006.
Okay.
It was the early part. It was like beginning spring, summer into 2007 is when we did the deployment, 7-month deployment.
And what I mean by that is, of course, everyone wants to be there during invasion, but as a new team guy, and I didn't know this either because my first deployment was 2005, but of course the invasion was great and it was the Wild Wild West, but we were learning things at such a high. We did not know exactly what we were doing. But when I got there in 2005, and I'm sure when you got there in 2007, you got to lean on guys that had already learned those hard lessons. Yeah. And you fall in on these well-oiled machines that are like, been there before, been there several times before. This is how we do it. And you fall in on a well-oiled machine. And that was awesome to get that experience of hit the ground, running, and just follow what they learned the hard way.
Yeah, and it was developing so fast and learning more things the hard way. I mean, we were doing all of our clearances, like hostage rescue. Combat clearance wasn't a thing that we learned yet from from Tier 1 as they were developing it. It was like, rushing in, breaching and rushing in, everything. But to your point, yeah, it did feel like that, but it also felt good turning over at the end of our deployment. Our turnover op was this huge firefight where a guy got sniped on our team from some like a wooded area. I was a JTAC, so we're dropping, Winchestering AC 130, and that was like, all right, Team 2, that was their turnover. So did you pay attention? And they're like, oh shit,
Right.
it's gonna be like this, Sadr City and everywhere, and like, yeah. Right. But it was a good feeling to then go, we oiled it more now for the next guys. And
That's right. They pushed the ball forward 75%, but I love the mentality of of American special operations that good is never good enough, and the next team came and pushed it, whether it be 1%. They're just the relentless pursuit of perfection.
Yeah, absolutely. You reminded me of that feeling when I met my first group of Army guys during combat time, and it was that we did this op where we stage out of BIOP.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's where they had their ready rooms,
Yep.
and they were operating. We were on a different camp down the road from what became Camp Lewis after one of the ops we went on that Jason Lewis got killed in an IED. And we got to work with, it was Task Force 17. We got to work with, we were not Tier 1, but we got to use the 160th on ops back and forth with Dev Group, and it was awesome for us. We were like, dude, we are not Tier 1, but we get to pretend like we are.
Right.
And at least utilize the helos and stuff. It was
Could
awesome.
use Little Birds?
We did not. Some guys did get to ride the Little Birds, but it was mostly the 60s and the 47s.
Right, yeah. Right.
I think that they were like, we didn't have really true recce elements, and we for sure used the AHs for fires.
Yeah. Man, that's so cool you got to do that.
I got to rope them in on one call one time. It was awesome, like with an ISLID. I felt so stupid. The pilot was like, I was this new guy, JTAC. I had a lot of drops, and I thought I had a lot of experience. And then we went over there, and my platoon chief was like, hey, all right, you're going to talk to these pilots because we get to use them for fires tonight. It's like a special deal, right? Okay. And the guy was like, hey, you know how to rope us in on a gun run if you need it, right? And I was like, yeah. And I just made it up. I was like, no, I don't fucking know. I was like, I will just, I will have the AC 130 sparkle what I want to hit, and then I will point to that with a laser, and you do that, and you hit that. And he was like, no.
Nice try. But
yeah,
that's
like,
how we do it.
And he looked at me like I was an idiot, and I was like, sorry, I don't know what I'm talking about. You just tell me. And he's like, all right, do this, like rope us around the Little Bird when you see us, and then point it at the thing and wiggle it. He's like, rope us, wiggle it, and we're going to hit that, right? Yeah. All right, that's how he does it, so I learned early on for that, so I knew something when I got to Dev Group, but it was
so cool you guys got that experience, because everyone else doesn't realize, they think of regular SEAL teams and SEAL Team 6, they're both SEALs, like they must be similar, that special forces or a terminology for Green Berets and the Delta Force, and it must be similar, when it couldn't be any further from the truth. Like the white side and the black side do not talk, generally speaking. I'm just talking in generalities. They don't talk. They don't do things together. Like they are separate. Yeah. And when I landed in BIOP in 06, I was waiting to go meet my team because I showed up like a week late. So I was there for like 2 weeks.
You were a Green Beret then?
I was a Green Beret.
Yes, that was the original point I was going to make, not the helo pilots, that when we went there, I got to meet a team of Green Berets, and they let us use their ready room to like get our charges and everything ready. And we got to see and compare. Yeah. And at first it was like, whose dick is bigger? And then like somebody broke the ice, played some music, grabbed some burgers. And after that, it was like, dude, I wish we could operate together the whole deployment. And it was awesome. And that was my first experience with SF guys that I was like, we're the same. Like, we're more similar than different.
Exactly. That's so true. We're so similar, but at the same time, everyone's just a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And because you're working on a high level, and you just want that 1% different, 1% better, whatever it is. Yeah. And no one has, after the butt sniffing's done, before that, or if you don't get to meet them very much, like no one has the courage to be like, hey, let me see your kit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of the simplest kit, like, and if one thing's off, why do you put that there?
Yeah.
And get to hear like, oh, this is, we did this mission. That's why I used to wear it there too. And now I wear it here because of this. And that's so small, but it's such a big thing to get to talk to people.
Oh, so whether your ego is in front of it or not, you're thinking about it going like, that dude did something smart with his kit that I'm going to copy or whatever.
Yeah. But when I was there as a Green Beret at BIOP, I was staying in these chews that were right next to the Delta Force guys. I didn't know it at the time.
What'd you say, Jews?
Chews.
Oh.
The chews. like a Chinese Jew.
Yeah.
I heard these birds start spinning up. But at the time, I'd done some combat rotations and a lot of training. I knew what a Black Hawk sounded like. And this thing sounded higher pitched. I was like, that's weird. So it's kind of caught my attention. I look over, and right over these walls and right over the top of the trees come these little birds with these guys hanging out on the side. And I was like, oh my God.
How do I get to that?
That's the Delta Force. I know that's the Delta Force. I saw them.
Yeah.
I saw them.
I saw them. Yeah.
Right. And of course, it would have never, if you'd have told me that time, like, you're going to be in the Delta Force. Like, no, those guys are
I
gods.
specifically remember some of the more senior dudes that I respected in my platoon. We were overseas in Unit 2 where there was no combat for a part of our deployment in Germany, where we were doing training, things with partner forces in like Nigeria and stuff, and Somalia and different places. And there was like some hostage rescue that Devru went on that we heard about, and they were all pissed, and we didn't know any better, but they were like, what the fuck? We're already here with Zodiacs. You're like, we can just inflate them and we can go do that. And like, it's the same. It's just another team.
Right.
And I remember like chiming in like, yeah, it's just another team. And then, realizing that it is much different. And it doesn't, they don't always want to say it too with it is when we're talking about it, I don't ever want to make sure that it doesn't ever say that any other unit or any other force, conventional or not, or anybody in the military is not valid because of that. Right. We're just talking about levels,
Right. And we highly concentrate on one particular thing, and that's, high value target and hostage rescue raids.
Specific.
And regular and white side SEALs and white side Green Berets have a larger spectrum that they have to worry about. It would be offensive if you were to tell me that they're just as good as me when that's the only when not to say the only thing, but when that's what my primary focus is, because I wouldn't say that I'm as good as them at everything that they do holistically. That would be offensive to them.
I don't know shit about like tank warfare or like what maneuvers we would do or anything but so like I always make that point because the internet of people and my friends that are all not special forces dudes, it's like, it's not an invalidating thing. It's just, I think people are fascinated with tier 1 and special forces in general, sometimes more than regular military or conventional because of the lifestyle of it and what it takes to get there.
For sure.
We're always talking about selections and what it takes to get there. But think about this. Okay, question for you. Like when you were on deployment with your guys, when you were in the Delta Force, in your hooches, and you know how you used to connect video games sometimes or Call of Duty or whatever the games you played, or, in the courtyard you're playing basketball or whatever. When it was time to watch movies or shows, what do you remember that you guys watched the most?
But ironically enough, Point Break, for whatever reason, we watched that movie every deployment.
Oh yeah, that's a classic to watch over
Point
Break, classic Predator, Commando, all the old school movies. But like I remember this deployment, we binge watched Band of Brothers.
Right. Yeah.
And that was our favorite one.
I say that and I'm thinking of the things we watched. Platoon, not special operations. Band of Brothers, not
Apocalypse Now, like
Apocalypse
classics,
Now, which is quasi special operations, but not necessarily. Fury.
Or Marines like Thin Red Line. And
we
stuff.
watched Fury.
Fury. So my point being is like, I don't think it's a true generalization that we special forces guys necessarily get more attention per se, because it's just that there's more sort of fascination with it because of the lifestyle of it, I think. Well, because all those classic movies are the best war movies ever, and Black Hawk Down's in there too, but like Saving Private Ryan and Band of Brothers is like my favorite.
Private Ryan, for sure. It's funny, Evan. We would watch Navy SEALs with which it's just a classic. Like you have to watch it.
And we were missing in action. We'd watch and the scene where he's like eating the rat that's like in the bag. It's like one of the best scenes. You're like,
I'm telling you, those of course the combat itself is just goes without saying. Those are some of the best times. Which but man, just hanging out with the guys, watching movies, working out. This is gonna. I hate to say this, but it's true to a point. Like it was almost like at times it felt like a guy's hunting trip. Just you and the boys. Having the time of your lives. The most dangerous hunting trip you could sign up for. Yeah, but it didn't always really feel like that. So it's a weird thing to try to convey.
Yeah, there's many different layers to it, I think. But those were the best memories when, even if it was hard moments in between missions, where like just those few hours you get to stack up in the little like stadium tiered seating we put in the hooches to watch a show like that. Oh, and crush ice cream.
On the white side, this is ironic. On the white side, my living conditions were better than when I was at the unit.
Yeah,
I'd usually have a big room, all to myself. We'd have our own base that that we owned, and we had all. But at the unit side, I usually had a roommate, or we slept in open bay. Like the team had this one room because we moved around a lot, or
constantly
we were
moving around.
constantly in and out, where everyone's just together.
Yeah.
So, but that made it special because you couldn't, at least in SF, if you want to go to your room by yourself, like you could.
Yeah.
There's no getting away from the guys. Like you're all crammed. No. You're all crammed in there. So you're hanging out.
Yeah, and then you get used to that and learn to love it.
Where were you at in Iraq? I think you Sadr City in and about on that first trip.
Yeah, most of the ops were there, and some of the Alamara, Bakaba sometimes.
Bakaba was a good one too.
Yeah,
you had a spicy rotation. That time frame, that area.
Yeah.
On your first deployment.
Yeah, it was the most intense. I mean, I think we did close to 100 ops on that one. And the deployments in Tier 1 are shorter 4-month deployments, so the op tempo just was never. I mean, we had some hard missions and stuff, but the op tempo was never as much as that first one.
Yeah, that's. I had a very good first deployment too, and it ruins you a little bit because that's your first taste of rotation, and so to you, like that plants the stake in the ground. Like that's what normal is when it may not necessarily be true.
Yeah, I watched your episode with Alex, and he made a good point where it was like, hey, we were like for a minute, the dev group was a little professionally jealous of your AO in Syria and different places because your op tempo was high, and they were like, man, we were doing good stuff, but because like you said, you're chasing that, and you're like, you want that op tempo all the time, every time.
Afghanistan just sucked. It was a tough place to do combat.
Yeah, like long
the terrain,
infills, dude.
The infills, the terrain, the buildings themselves were not fun to hit.
Yeah,
generally speaking, we got some. You can get into some city work and Jalalabad, and you can do some city work with sporadically.
But it wasn't urban like that. Yeah,
even the urban stuff still wasn't great, and not that often.
Yeah,
no one wants to squeeze through a mud hut door and kit.
It was more endurance. Fast. Yeah, we're our workouts were like you got to go 8 to 12 clicks every night, up and down and terrain.
And we had to. It was the best decision. I mean, tactically, that every time we did that, it was the right call. But man, was it painful.
There was one misconception maybe we had, or maybe it wasn't for a period. It seemed like on one of my second JBAD deployment with Silver, with Dev Group, we were like, dude, fuck this. Let's just go to the X. Like the Delta guys are doing every time. Sometimes, sir, we're like tired of walking 12 miles every night. Let's just go to the X on this one, or the Y,
I'll tell you this: we didn't walk in every time. That's for sure. We didn't walk in every time. If it made sense, we would walk in rather than the easy answer.
Yeah.
But if we thought we'd get away with the X, we'd take it to the X.
It was like the offset infill was a standard, and we were like, can we just do a few and just land a little closer and just on the Y?
Yeah.
We promise we'll get up to the door fast and not
to jump ahead just a little bit. When you decided to go to Tier 1, do you guys have any cool slang for it or words like we call it, taking the long walk, the other side of the fence? What's your terminology for it?
We said like across the street.
Okay. So when you decided to go across the street, what was it that made you? And I'll say this, facetiously. I know this wasn't what you really thought, but there's a party that must have. There's a little bit of truth there, or you wouldn't have done it. What is it at this stage of your career? Like, I'm better than everyone else, or good enough to be a tier 1 guy?
The thing that made me even think about that I could go be a tier 1 guy was Alex. So I always end up in JBAD on that camp. I think I did 4 deployments there. To include the first one I was ever there was augmenting his team there when I was on the rotation before my selection. So
Okay.
I went and augmented for their whole deployment. We were, he was my team leader, and it was, me, one other guy from my team augmenting him at an outstation. So I was getting a lot of JTAC experience doing that with him.
Okay.
And I thought I was going to go there to be just a comms guy.
Okay.
And I got this crazy opportunity because most guys were going to just be a radio or RTO guy with a task force. So another special situation I lucked out with. And those chow halls are legit too, like espresso and lobster tails and nice rooms,
Okay. Oh, were you there with the Omega teams?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. But right down the road, the task force was there, and this crazy situation. One of their CCTs had been falling out on ops. Like, he was a skinnier guy. I don't know what it was, but there was one point where another assaulter had to carry his radio and do his job, and he was just carrying a gun. So they sent him away, and Alex jumped on that because it would give him more ops and to bring us guys and have another assaulter with them. And they were like, yeah. So he was like, hey, this is an awesome deal. Don't fuck it up, And I was like, all right. And I got more calls doing that as their secondary CCT guy. And I ended up getting more calls than their CCT guy because I got to roll next to the troop chief all the time. And we had some crazy experiences doing that. And back at the outstation, we were going back and forth and doing both sides. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. And just with the conversations and hanging out and, having drinks sometimes and stuff, was like, man, this is really awesome. And I'm thinking about, like, do you think that I would make it if I went to screen? He's like, you need to go screen. Yeah. You don't know if you don't do it, So true. I did. And and I ended up in a green team with him as my cadre.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I wasn't the best guy. I wasn't the worst in the class. I struggled a little bit towards the end of assault, but that was pretty standard for me, was to be somewhere in the middle, I think. And, when it came draft time, I ended up going to silver, but fast forward to now and all the things he's doing that are so awesome. And he's just a great dude. I love watching the interview, but that was my sort of mentor into that. And he didn't know that at the time, but it was just true.
I'm sure there's a similarity, even though we don't know much about the different squadrons and we're OTC. But now you're close enough. You get to hear some things, and everyone has a squadron they want to go to, whether it be where their friends are at, or like a culture of the squadron that you hear about, or because your instructor came from that squadron.
Yep.
Was there a squadron you wanted to go to?
Yeah, I think that primarily I landed in the one I wanted because all the Team 10 guys that went there previous to me, a bunch of them were there. So I knew guys that I was deployed with. There was at least 5 or 6 of them that were in senior, more, on their second or third rotation there. Yeah. So I was comfortable there. And so it was either that, or the only other places I really knew anybody at all was Alex and Red. I think I ended up with the one I wanted to go to because of those Team 10 guys.
Yeah. To back up a little bit, because it's a experience I'll never forget. No one ever will. We just talked about like how separated the tier 1 units are from the white side units. Do you remember the first day, prior to when you checked in for green team, that you walked behind that fence as an employee there, if you will, and be like, no, like, you're not there yet. You still got green team, but you're there.
You're there, and I speak for myself, but I think it's probably true. Is like, you're playing it cool. You know, you're like, pretend like you've been there before.
Right.
Same thing, first time you're riding little birds around a city on a rut, you know, same thing, first time you're doing a mock-up hostage rescue in like Gillette Stadium or somewhere, you know, with the staff of the team watching you guys.
Right.
All of those moments, it was like, play it cool. But I remember thinking on some of those moments, like, this is like the action movie life that I dreamed of,
right.
You know?
Like people write books and movies and there's just
that's what's hard to describe.
Stories of this place. I'm here. Like it's just crazy. It's a crazy feeling, you know.
When I write my book.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's a crazy feeling, but the feeling is tainted knowing that you could lose it, you know, next week because you're still going through a selection process.
You could lose it in an instant, you know? So that is part of it too, but I think that's what's missing from some. Just kidding about the book. Mine's going to be like ice cream recipes or something, with like camel's milk or something.
Right.
But the thing I think is missing in some of the ones I read, I don't read a lot of them, is like people are starting to hear it over and over again. So as they get used to it, it's becoming, you know, less and less profound. But I think one thing that's missing is like the smell of the air and the sound of the propellers and the flying with the wind in your face and some of those descriptive things that make you feel what you're saying, which is I'm doing like I'm an operator right now, doing this action adventure lifestyle.
You know, you could do both. You could have the greatest ice cream book ever, tell a war story, and then say, and when we got back from that, the best ice cream that could have coupled from that experience is this flavor.
Yes.
Right?
And just pair it with like experiences.
We're just gonna force it together and see how it goes.
Great idea. I'm trying to think of an editor, Dylan.
Yeah, we're gonna make ice cream. We're gonna make ice cream exciting again. Is what we're gonna do.
Yeah, because it's bland, it's boring, it's too healthy now. It's like, dude, if you're indulging ice cream, but as long as the ingredients aren't toxic, you know.
How long did you spend at the Tier 1 unit?
2010 to 6 years, almost 7 years. Is towards the end of the year as I got out, and I was on terminal leave, but my terminal leave was pretty action packed. Like I didn't really get a terminal leave.
I do want to talk about that because that is crazy. You would talk about literally action packed from the beginning to the end of your time there. Like you couldn't have squeezed in a mission any later into that.
After that, my buddies, it was a failed mission, but not because of anything, you know, terrible. And they ended up getting recovered sometime later anyways. Honestly, I've held this back a little bit, but one of my biggest like haters in the world is a guy that I believe compromised that mission by being a doofus and falling off his ladder and creating this like explosion of a sound that gave the bad guys, you know, 30 seconds and 30 seconds is a long time.
Yeah.
On that,
it's an eternity.
In that story,
yeah.
To kick and stuff these guys down into this tunnel that was right in the middle of the room that they had right next to just in case.
Yeah.
And because I was able to like go study years later after I was out and read the report of those hostages and what they saw and felt and heard, and it lines up with what happened exactly play by play, where they like, I got stuffed down this, we heard a big noise and then I got stuffed down in this tunnel and knocked out. And then I came back to, and then there was a bigger explosion, which was the breach in my opinion, a few seconds later. And so I've held that, but you know, eventually that guy will get out someday and may or may not realize that hating just doesn't matter that much. But point being is like, it could have been sour. I see it as a great experience now. And I still think it was awesome that I got to go do that last mission. Yeah. Because everything that I did was tactically sound and it was great. And the team, you know, and it was a great op.
I said put a pin in that because we were talking about the tandem bundle course.
Right.
And you were on terminal leave, but because you're a tandem qualified, they needed you.
Correct. And it's not like that's like they needed you. You know,
they needed your
me.
skill set.
Yeah, it was like the way that it happened was because of a mistake that the commands, you know, our team kind of made. That same thing where you talk about where like you get too comfortable, you know.
Yeah.
And when you're on standby, you're supposed to be ready to go anywhere in the world. And because nothing was happening for some time before that, for the previous few standbys, they were like, hey, the training has to happen if we're just sitting around. And we're like, we're not sitting around. We're in the kill house all day, every day.
Right.
You know? So there were some guys that had those quals and recce guys we needed that were shooting. And usually you have time. You have a day maybe.
Right.
In this case, by the time it spun up, we were out in hours.
Yep.
And so that's why they were like, those guys are going to come meet us, but we've got, a little more than a minimum force right now. We need a tandem, and a recce guy would be, we need an experienced recce guy. And that was me, because when we got back from our deployment in Somalia, there was no reason for me to go do anything else except turn everything in and go on terminal leave and go on vacations and stuff and using my leave up. But there was another jump trip, and I was like, hey, man, I want to go jump, and still be part of the team, And so I went and jumped, did a bunch of bundles and tandems for one last shindig. And thank God I did that qual, because I was current on that. And when that spun up, Troop Chief was like, hey, we really need help planning this. And I was joking. I said, I was so depressed because they were spinning up, and I was just on my computer doing emails, and I left because I was like, man, fuck this. I don't want to watch these guys spinning up. I'm going to go home and go for a run. Came back from the run, picked up my phone, Troop Chief called him, and was like, hey, we need help planning the routes, and could be a hey-ho, might be an infill, whatever. I was like, yeah. Came, oh, if I come do all this, can I go on the op? I got the qual, I'm current. And he's like, wait, do you have all your blowout stuff and your kit? I was like, everything I need for my min force. I got my 300 blackout and my nods and my kits. And so he went and checked with the CO and the Master Chief, and they were like, yeah, let's get him on it. We need a tandem. We got a medic. We need tandem in with the CMC did a tandem, which was badass. And
Really?
Yeah. And I'm super good friends with him now. Still, he retired, but we landed together next to each other with 2 tandems on that op, and then I went up with the point element, and took us a target. It was awesome. And then literally, because of that, we had a follow on to a huge compound, and then the Rangers got involved and started doing different hits. And this was all the network of compounds that network of dudes had been using for hostage taking for the whole GWAT to get them across to, in Kapisa to get them across to Pakistan.
Yeah.
And so Bergdahl was held at one of these, and another, and was held at one. So it was a known thing that we weren't operating in all the time. So that's how it went down. And then after that second one, I was like, hey guys, I gotta get home to my job in 3 days. I did all these interviews and stuff with Northrop Grumman to get it, and if I miss it, I lose that's not good. So they flew me home. I took flew back to BAF and caught a flight home, and was working 3 days later. So in a suit in DC.
I hate to ask you this question, but then again, you're one of the few people that that can really talk to this. And it's the reality of the job. We like to think that the good guys always win, but that's just not the case. We win a majority of the majority of things we go on. We win.
I looked this up the other day just for fun.
Yeah,
who's failed more and succeeded at more hostage rescues out of the 2 units? And you guys got one up on us. And I think 2 less failed overall ever. And I think it's 4-3 or something like that on success.
Which there's 2 things I'd love to hear that we're ahead, but 2 that it's really close, because that checks out. And almost so close that it's we need more data.
And this is not an excuse, but how it is. Is you could be the Super Bowl winning team that year, but the tight end made a mistake and got benched, or somebody on the team shouldn't be there or something. I believe that is true too, and it comes down to one little fucking mistake that somebody makes.
Right. Or it's very similar to where, of course, everyone cares about that Super Bowl, but as soon as that Super Bowl's over, no one cares. What are you capable of now?
Yeah,
it's short-lived.
There's a team that's won 6 of those,
right.
but not in the last 5 years. Who's better?
But they only care what they're going to do this year.
That's right. So that's all that matters for But
you call it a failed hostage rescue because you guys weren't able to
didn't
grab
recover
those Americans. I'm sure you were thinking about that the night before, like bringing these Americans home. It's all it can probably it consumed you guys.
Absolutely.
It consumed you in the way
Consumed
you
us
trained,
after too.
and that's really what I talk about. And again, it's probably not a fun thing to talk about, but it's a reality of this job that no one really ever talks about or has that experience. What did that do to the team? And what was that like coming home?
We were down. We did that debrief, and the last thing I remember that same Master Chief, badass Master Chief, saying was, "You motherfuckers better get your heads up because that was badass, right?" And it's a hostage rescue. One of three things is going to happen, right? You're going to get them, right? The bad guys are going to kill them, or in very rare cases, but has happened, you're going to fuck up and you accidentally kill them. And that's the worst, right?
Right.
But that's how high risk that is. And so when people are talking about it, having fun, coking, they don't realize like the fine hair, the fine line between success and failure in any of that level of a mission, of a mission set.
I don't think people realize how
even for law enforcement too. Anybody that does hostage rescue.
They do it in video games. They see it in movies.
I'm so desensitized to that.
They don't understand when you go on a hostage rescue mission, the tactics they're not for you. They're for the hostage.
It changes. Like
they're for the hostage.
We can take heavies and still have a successful hostage rescue.
Exactly.
That's not like a regular op against some regular dude in the network. Where if we take heavies, that still could be a successful mission. It's not. It can't be.
Before a regular mission, I don't. Generally speaking, but I don't worry about getting hit. I don't worry about getting killed. I only, it's just not what I worry about. Before a hostage rescue mission, you just know. The chances of someone taking one, and is very high.
Absolutely,
and it's just
likely to.
Likely, yeah. You just hope it's not lethal. And they come back to work, but someone's getting hit. The chance of someone getting hit is so much higher than any other operation.
It's a crazy thing to think about. I don't even remember, when we hit our set point with one of our EOD guys up in the point, and I was like, we had done so much together over the years, and we just were like kind of looking at each other like, all right, we're calling it in 20 minutes and waiting for the head shed to make their set point, and we're rolling. And he just looked at me, and I was like, dude, it's just like any other mission. Let's go do it, And I remember thinking that with him is like, that's the mindset is like, we know what's going to happen. We kind of give each other that look and go like, if it's you, I got you. If it's me, you got me. But but don't worry about me until you get the hostage. It's just a different mindset.
This is the one thing the movies get right to some degree. And it's a little cliche, but it's so true. And it's so powerful. It just is. Whether it's on a bird, whether it's at LCC, at some point during that mission, you're going to look at one of your friends and you're just going to give them a head nod. You're not going to say anything. You might give them a fist bump at best.
Yeah.
But that
it's
fist bump
nonverbal.
or that little head nod says everything. It says, I got you. When they give that head nod back, it's like, and I got you. And it gives you all the confidence in the world that you're with the best guys on earth to do what we're about to do.
Now, what you just said, foreshadowing to something later you may or may not ask me, is the way that I decided to answer if you do is like more related to that. What you just said is like, that's the most important thing of all of this shit is that look, the infinite understanding between each other, nonverbal in that moment where you just look at each other like we are right now, where it's like you get it and I get it. And it is what it is. And doesn't matter if we hate each other back home. And I'm like, God, I wish that guy would leave my team because he's the most annoying dude ever. But
people say it all the time. It was apparent on the Alex West episode. It'll be apparent on this because you didn't think you were the best. You didn't think you're the worst. But most tier 1 guys are very humble guys. They're very humble guys. Most of them. Don't get me wrong. It's easier to be humble when you're retired. They may have been a little cockier, like while they were on the team, but they still would have. They still wouldn't have been jerks about anything.
It's so hard to balance at that level your own ego, because it's a collective ego at that level,
Yeah.
and it's an individual ego, and the balance is very difficult. And it's true what you're saying, but there was a time where you said, like, when did you realize that, like, man, I'm good enough there was a time, but I wouldn't have said it in front of me and my other team 10 guys, where I was like, man, I'm ready to go to another level.
Right. Yeah.
There was,
But let me tell
it's
you,
just the way you say it,
walk into that bird and giving head nods, confidence through the roof.
Yeah.
That, like, I am capable of doing this job, and I'm going to prove it to you. You're going to do it to me. Us as a team are the best in the world at what we like. There's no real time for extreme humility right there.
No, you have to have that for it to work, I think.
You do. Like, you do. You have to have that to work. And if you're doing hostage rescue, I don't want anyone else stacking up against that door than dudes who think they're the best in the world in what they do. And you're lucky I'm here tonight because we are exactly who you want tonight because we're capable of this. And you have to have that audacity.
In those moments, I think that ego is necessary. It's all the other 99.9% of the time outside of that in that life and afterwards. Now we're talking about family and mental health and the things that doesn't exist in that moment.
Yeah. And I love that that you talk about that, because it's all about the ability to change gears. Mm-hmm. And people who are humble too much the whole time, they'll never be able to perform because they're too humble. And guys that are jerks because they have too much ego and pride, and that's all the only speed they have, they'll never make it anywhere either. No one wants to work with them.
Yeah.
The ability to change gears and say, all right, now it's time to turn it on. Now's time to turn it off. It's a unique ability and somehow they select for it really well.
Yeah, they select for it really well.
Whether it's intentional or if that's just the package that just happens to come with what they're looking for. I don't know. I don't know how you train a guy to do that. I don't think you can. I think it's an innate ability.
I think there's some kind of an art to it, and that's what they've been trying to study, is how it all puzzles together. But like you said, if you're too humble, it's like there's an insecurity that makes you that humble, just as like there's an insecurity that makes you way overly arrogant that just is inauthentic. And then the in between that are the guys that operate at this level that go, it's real confidence, like authentic confidence in what they do.
Well, you talked about it. Let's get into it. Did you you served with Rob O'Neill when he got pushed over to Silver Squadron, correct?
Yes, very temporarily after that whole sort of kind of return from that op and the little bit of dysfunction that seemed to be going on in there. And we needed a team leader. He came over temporarily, and I was newer then. And honestly, you're so busy, I didn't think much into it that much. But I met him and got to work with him a little bit. It's regardless of what was going on. Like I would ask you this same question. Mm-hmm. It did, of course, like being on that op is a pretty big deal, right? I mean, it's arguably one of the greatest high value, target raids in American special operation history because of the level, not because of how hard the target was. I don't care about that. It was, but the gravity of it. I mean, and it was still a cross-border raid. There's still things that could have gone wrong. And they didn't. And that goes to the level of expertise to everyone, the level of planning. And not everything went according to plan. And they shifted off of that. Right.
And they carried it out to perfection.
Yeah,
no one. People ask me, like, do you think the Delta Force would have done that better? Done it better? What was there to improve on?
I think they may or may not have, like we said, depending on the specific team, the situation within the team, the players.
They executed it perfectly. Really, like which one? They all bad guys gone. All good guys come home.
Right. And we only ever asked that question if it didn't work out. Probably,
right. So that being said, did he ever come on the team and be like, and talk about the raid and tell you guys, like, hey, I'm the one who killed bin Laden, and just told that story, or did he just never really get told?
And I'm only going to speak for myself in this whole answer.
Yeah.
First of all, and not for anybody else and what I experienced, but like, no, we didn't hear a debrief about it much. We talked about, of course, you know how it works, locker room talk. We're talking about it amongst ourselves, but that's all speculation unless you go to a brief. And, you know, Silver Squadron had a really big hostage rescue go wrong when I was a new guy, and I sat in on the brief to hear about it. I was like, oh my gosh, wow, I didn't realize, like, one, it was a tactically badass op, like the way that they did this thing. And it's just very unfortunate that the way that it ended, different story. But so it was more like, it wasn't like that. There was we just were working, you know, and not knowing what was going to happen next. And then he got out, you know, and then just between work, I started to hear the stories of the two guys that are going to tell their stories different ways, you know, and I'm friends with Biss now.
Right.
And he's doing great things. And I believe his version of the story. And I'll reserve my thoughts for when you ask me for that side of the story and what I think. But the way that I've decided to answer that, I think might be a little different. So don't get mad at me or anything. But
I don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't get mad at your answer. It's
yeah.
It's your.
But to that answer, like, no, I didn't hear who did it until probably months later when guys were talking about it and going, "All right, who killed UBL?" And
yeah, I'll tell you this, and I'll always be, and you know, the audience can be, I get it, mad or disappointed. You know, I had Alex West on, and some people just don't want to talk about it, and I get that.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to tell you that regardless of what you say, I'm just grateful that you're like, yeah, I mean, you can ask me, I'll be respectful, you know, about the way I do that, because no one else will talk to me if I'm not.
I don't mind telling my opinion. It's just the way that I say it, you know.
For sure. And that I wouldn't expect it any less of you.
Yeah.
What is it about Matt Bissonnette's story that do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I read both of those a long time ago, so it's like, you know, I don't memorize every page of anything.
Yeah.
But I don't read that much. But I believe his side of the story. It's just it lines up with anything that I've heard. So does Rob's up until that moment on the third floor.
Yeah.
And the question really is about the 3 or 4 guys that made that entrance and the timing of it and all of those little tiny nuances that, you know, we go over, you know, all the time. And but also, especially when it's a successful mission, we talk about it a lot less as a team than if it was a failed mission. Then you pick it apart like to death, you know, and you will know. Yeah. And so, I don't want to get ahead of your questions, but
I have no set line of questions.
Yeah,
you know, I'm just reacting off of what you say.
Yeah. So yeah, I enjoyed Biss's book, the Operator book. I think they have different tones, and reasons why is a tone thing and a personality thing, right? And like we said earlier, is like, I want to answer this not out of judgment for what I think is like, oh, he should or shouldn't say it this way or do it this way. I get this shit all the time where people are like, you should put this in your ice cream instead of that. I'm like, well, there's a lot more to that than you think of.
Well, you started an ice cream business since you know everything about it.
You can make it however you want to make ice cream, you know? And so whether or not, you know, the operator is more driven towards his own ego, you know, or not, I know that there's layers to that I don't understand because I don't know him super well. You know, day to day. And I know Biss, but I don't know him super well. Same thing. So I'm going to leave the judgment part of it out of it.
Right.
Because I think the general public can already know and feel what they think about that part of it. Mine is more like what I think happened and why these two stories and that finite last detail is different.
Right. But I mean, it is a small part of the story. It really is. Because like I said, I said this on my show that, you know, Rob's account, Matt's account, or anyone else that was on that mission that I talked to has the exact same account, generally speaking, maybe from different views, but they all line up all the way through the second floor. So it's not like it's just like one massive lie we're talking about. Unfortunately, it's the smallest one room in this on this target matters. It's the biggest. It's the culmination of getting vengeance for September 11th.
Who shot UBL? I think I'm going to use this is a hard one for me to do right now.
Okay.
I'm going to use that hostage rescue where the first interview I ever did talking about this was with Dave Hookstead, and I was super nervous. I needed to get it off my chest, and I started to, this was like, hey, I couldn't figure out how I was going to do it, and then eventually I ended up doing the full thing on the Sean Ryan show I'm glad I did it that way. It was not easy. And it was like a healing, resolving moment for me to just get that off, right? And not just for people, but for like even my sons later on.
Right.
This thing that Dad did and needed to understand as my own two sons grow. So when I told it there, I made a mistake that I didn't understand. Still planning and doing my best, I said, hey, me and another guy killed these 5 people, including these 2 younger ones. Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't realize this, but that guy was really affected by that. It was like I wasn't ready for that, and it really affected him equally as profound as it affected me. Mm-hmm. And so I called him and apologized because he's a really close buddy of mine. So we resolved that with that. But point being is that now when I tell it, I go, I did that, because you do it, the stories, I think the most respectful way is from your own perspective, unless the guy agrees or someone wants to be in it. So what I think happened with the 3rd floor is you got a 1, 2, or 3 or 4-man entry. I'm not well versed in the very details of that story from the book that I way back. My opinion and the truth, I think, in the general community is that another guy that was not Rob O'Neill that we all know is out there. People know his call sign, right? Is Red is the first guy that took shots, whether it was in the face or in the body. I think it was not in the face, to put the bad guy down. Mm-hmm. Now, when we go on operations, on normal ops, and we come home and a couple guys got some kills, in our community, do we ever go, like, if you put somebody down and he wasn't like quite all the way dead but needed to be, because that's the most ethical way to do it, and other reasons too, somebody else is like, oh shit, and like, puts them away, finishes them off, whatever you want to call it. Who gets the credit for that kill per se? Not that we ever need it. We don't, honestly, in my experience, we never kept score on each other. It was just like, hey, we generally know that Brent killed that dude, right?
Right. It's just team room banter. I've been back from missions where all 4 people said, yeah, I shot that dude.
Yeah, exactly. So when we
and they all 4 did, actually.
Yeah.
But
so are we talking about who put holes in him, or who do we think killed him, not knowing at the exact moment when his spirit left, right?
Right.
So now in my situation, the 2 younger ones, one of them was not all the way dead, but for sure that was the most ethical thing, was like to stop that suffering, right? Another teammate finished that, and that was not easy, and that's another story that I don't even want to talk about, because it's not my place to that. The story is that I did that, right? So now take that and go back to what we're talking about, where generally what my opinion is and what I feel is that another guy put shots first, then it's almost instantaneous. Right. Second guy comes in, maybe he's on his way down, maybe he's already down, and it's like more shots. Third guy, couple more shots if the angle is right. And I don't remember if there was a 4th guy or not, and I don't know which one was Rob.
In what order, right.
But in my opinion, now this is where I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Sure.
He did kill UBL because they all did. Those 3 or 4 guys put shots in him. Now, whether he came in and put one in the face, I don't know. That's like different. And, they needed to ID him, so that wouldn't have been smart, but I don't know with the first guy. I don't know that stuff. This is just now back it up to your point, which is you're saying he didn't kill him. Well, I agree that he's not the first guy that shot him, and that the credit typically goes to the first guy who shot him if we're going to be talking about it that way. So you are also correct.
Well, that's not necessarily my point.
Okay.
My point is is this: if that was the way Rob told the story,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have never made a podcast about that. That's about who shot him first, second, third, or fourth, and and he's like, I took the final shot. The problem comes in Rob's side of the story,
Changing.
where he takes everyone else out of the room, and he
Right.
goes, me and me alone,
Right.
put 2 shots in his head while he was standing up, and put a shot in his head while he was down. Nobody else but me took out the world's
Yes.
most deadliest terrorist, when that's just not
Not
true.
true.
Like
No.
it's a very I try not to get too I'll never really want to be unprofessional about it. I might be blunt, but
Yeah.
I don't let my feelings get in the way.
Yeah.
But as a team member, for someone to take credit for something that was truly a team event, like
Yes.
that I do have a problem with. And
No.
then when you couple it with this, the why behind it. Did you are you covering something else up, or did you do it for good reasons, or did you do it to sell a book and go on speaking tours for personal gain? And now I have a double
Exactly.
problem with that, and that's why.
So I absolutely agree with you. It has changed, right? The story. Now, what I'm saying is, I agree with you. I agree with what you're saying, because in our community, it is very, very important, especially if you're going on media and you're telling things that are going to become history, that it's as accurate as it can be, right? And why, like, I think Tim Kennedy's a good human, but
sure.
it's separate. It's different from his, because his is like just full blown lies, right?
Right.
And you made an attempt at accountability, different story. I still think that, like, I could still go hang out with that guy and that he's doing good things. He's not a bad human, right? And his accountability should be better. Whatever. Now for Rob, different story, because I think he's telling the truth in different ways, but I also know that was such a high level of McChrystal and the administration getting credit for it, Obama administration, like, hey, we did this, and now here's the guy, just like in that one movie about the dude. It was like a Medal of Honor guy. I can't remember the name. It was like Flags of Our Fathers or one of those, where they were like, you're getting the Medal of Honor, and then he became this celebrity thing that he didn't want to, right? But he was forced kind of into it. Now, Rob wasn't forced into it. I think that with his personality type was like, yo, yeah, I'll be the guy,
Right.
And because he was there and he did put shots into him, and you could say that it's very tough to tell at which exact shots the spirit left the body and he actually died or whatever.
Right.
But to your
I'd
point,
buy that story all day long. I'd buy that story.
right? But to your point, there was a time where he said, I was the only one. And that's why I made that point before, where I said I was the only one, because there's these sensitivities to those layers for guys that are involved that I think people above Rob O'Neill in this story demanded that he do, right? And I'm not going to, maybe he decided on his own to do that. I don't believe that, because there was so many politics involved with it. The same with like Marcus Luttrell's book. There were so many politics in that where, he had to come back and say like, okay, look, honestly, they did this and they were going to make this a big thing. And it kind of caught him by surprise, but he kind of went with it, not realizing, hey, later, all the GWAT guys are going to be done, and people that know are going to be like, hey, we're not cool with inaccuracies or even lies or anything. So my point being is that I am going to say this from a point where it's like I am ignorant to the details and nuances of like the lawsuit and the things going on.
Yeah.
But what I think is that underneath all that, it matters, because it's like tough, dude. I have business and I went through a lawsuit and it was tough. It almost stopped the whole thing if I didn't navigate that correctly. So I don't want to invalidate or either of you guys, and your personality types are completely different, right? Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is this: if he showed up here and tonight we grabbed those whiskey glasses and we started a fire out there like we used to around the campfire, I bet you guys we would drop it and we'd go, hey, I think you're full of shit, and we'd make fun of each other, and he'd be like, you're an asshole for doing all this, and there's all these layers that either of us don't understand, and maybe we'd explain it, maybe we wouldn't, but it would be in a brotherhood circle, so it's like trustworthy. So I don't want to discredit anything, but my point is that what I hope would happen is that we could do that and go, it's more important what's underneath of that than this thing and how it affects our lives, because you're absolutely right. Like it's such a high level and history is so important. Accountability and integrity is very, very important to clear up. And maybe he doesn't have a way, and he's doing this sort of, his personality type is this overt.
Doesn't feel like he has a clear path, to do it without.
Maybe he's reacting to the pressure to be here's truthful about it, to go, who actually killed him? And I was like, I think that's not the question. It's more like, who all put shots in him, which means they're all telling the truth. Like they're both, Biss and him are both telling the truth. They put shots in him.
Right.
And now it's just this.
But again,
this thing.
Matt puts it as a team.
Yes.
Rob puts
He's
it as
chosen
himself.
to go, it's always team. And
Right.
Rob's personality is like, what I think is there's some layers to that he kind of went with it. This is like what, 10 years now going on? Is like,
so my bigger issue to some degree is this is when it started, and I hate to say it, it's weird because I'm like, it's almost like I'm getting offended for you guys.
yeah.
But
Yeah, it's
when the truth was coming out, and I feel like he felt a little cornered. But
Yes.
we talked about Tim Kennedy too. Like Tim Kennedy got cornered by the truth, and Tim could have came out and just been honest. And guess what? And Tim would be fine right now.
That's right.
He'd still get jokes about it every now and again, but
re-
people would have welcomed him back and be like,
Absolutely.
"Hey, we all make mistakes. You still do good things. You are a good man.
you're still a hero.
You're right.
You were a fucking badass UFC fighter that like that Yoel Romero fight. I still watched it this day to go. He got robbed in that fight, dude.
But because he didn't do that, he can't go on a single podcast without the comment section just just ripping them apart. And I hate that, to be honest with you, because
Me too.
It didn't have to be that way.
But if you think about the pressure that was created, it worked. He's not embellishing and lying anymore. It stopped. So essentially, it worked.
For now.
Now
And
it's
I hope-
like
and
maybe
I hope it maintains.
If you think about this way, like if you ever had like an addict in your family, and you're like, for them, because you're saying it in a way that's like a brotherhood thing for Rob and for anybody else, because we are brotherhood underneath all of this. Anybody in the veteran, anybody in combat, and there's layers to that. That if you love them, the way that to get them to heal first is to like confront them and get them to confront themselves and admit this, like, I'm a heroin addict or whatever.
Right.
That's so hard to do when you're in that until they're ready, and you have to find a moment where they're ready. Well, maybe he's getting ready and it's just taking time. I don't know, but the point is what doesn't work is to go, you will admit it right now and start this path to freedom that we know you can be this, right?
Right.
And force that, because people will just get defensive and backed into a corner, like you said.
And they'll
defend themselves to the death if they have to, if they're not ready.
Right. I completely agree with that. And proof of that is, when he went on Andy Stump's podcast, it was a little bit painful. And I really don't take like joy in that, because
we're talking about Tim right now again.
No,
or
talking
Rob.
about Rob.
Okay, back to Rob.
And I believe what he did was, and I've covered this in a live podcast, but rather than coming out and saying, "Hey, it was the whole team," but I was the last one to put a shot in him, so that's why I think I killed him. I'd take that all day long.
Yeah.
But instead, when all these facts are brought to him, now he has to try to outsmart the truth rather than own it. And this is something that the few things is kind of what I was saying earlier, that I think I became offended for you guys, because I think very, very highly of you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when his idea was, all right,
We'll see how it affects an entire community of people. One thing, you know?
right? And he goes, all right, here's how I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna tell Andy. I'm gonna go on the show and tell Andy that, okay, we lied about what happened during the debrief, and that's how I'm gonna connect these dots.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have a whole community that has done a lot of good in this world, and is full of men with integrity. And now your story to the world is, when we're gonna lie.
Yeah.
When something goes wrong, we're gonna come out. We're gonna lie about it to cover it up. And I didn't like that answer. And because the answer was more, I'm just being honest. Right now, the answer was again more of like, how can I cover for myself? And I don't think shouldn't say I don't think he cared. I don't think he was thinking what the other side of that looks like, and what that's going to look like to the community.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That's not
a
good
no matter
look.
how much I can say,
it's not a good look to say, hey, we're going to cover things up.
No.
We're going to lie on an AAR.
But if he's also going to go make the story about me, myself, and I, not the team, and then he says something that relates to the whole team, then it's counterindicating. It's like contradicting. Yeah. So I'm not going to say like, oh, it's not true, because it's not my place to control that. But like it's it can't be, we can't generalize. But it's such a high profile thing that it just happens naturally. So there's nothing you can do about it. So, but my point is, I think you're both right in what you're doing, on like 100% honest. And some people are going to hate me out there because they want to see us. They want to see us, they want to see you guys meet up and live stream a fight, and go like, well, let's just duke it out and drop the lawsuit thing. I'm saying we should meet up and drink whiskey and go through it and understand that there's layers to both what you're saying and why you're doing it, and there's layers to why he is choosing the directions he's saying things with this story that I think go above. My opinion is that they go above him, because from what I understand about the administration, McChrystal's fucking book, and nobody's questioning his shit,
Line it up. Yeah. I will sit down and talk to Rob. I've offered that since the beginning when I gave him my phone number.
Yeah.
And that's not like a jab on him just so I can say I'll sit down on him.
Yeah.
That's just telling you I've been consistent. I would have talked with him then. I talked to Tim Kennedy several times during the whole Tim Kennedy debacle. Even though I knew he was lying, I was very cordial with Tim. And Tim, even though I called him out as a liar, Tim was very cordial with me. To be honest with you, no one would have. If people would have heard our conversations, they wouldn't have thought we were in the middle of this public. You're a liar. No, I'm not.
That's good to hear that in public, because
I don't think I've ever said that.
Because of the way that if he responded that way, still, a nice guy to this thing that was happening, it says something about him that I'm trying to prove here.
Right. And
he's just not ready to just fully say I lied about a bunch of stuff. But maybe he will be soon. I don't know.
It would be two-face of me to say like, hey, I'll have those conversations with Tim, but I won't have them with Rob. So of course I'd have them with Rob.
Yeah, I agree. I know. And when I say this is going to sound all Alex West right now, which is fun because I love that guy. Is the best way to do it is in a safe space to get somebody to talk out what you're trying to get out of them. For us, the safe space is just like we were on deployment around a campfire with whiskey after ops bullshitting, or like on some hunting trip. That's the fucking safe space. So that's the best way that I can think of. If I was like a mediator, and I was like, I'm not, but if I'm just I wasn't even, I was newer when all that happened. I didn't have that much experience compared to him at all.
Right.
So, there's going to be people, or even him, that's like, who does this guy have the audacity? But my point is like, the brotherhood is the most important thing to me, that like, it's going away from that, because it's aligning with the division that's happening in the public society as well now between us. And it's like, every industry of anything anybody does is doing this, but my fight against that is to go just realign it, and so that, because what I think that there's this public expectation for guys like us to be like these heroes, and not be. I think that it's awesome when it's this fun, friendly rivalry. Like, I don't know if they know, but this still happens. But every year we had a golf tournament down with you guys, SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force, and we got hammered, and there was fights sometimes. But what were they doing after the fights was like the UFC were like, they were like, dude, now it's mutual respect because it's over. You just dealt with it.
Yeah.
You hug it out, and the rivalry continues. And that's what I want to happen with this, because it's also now when it gets into, past the fun back and forth, and it becomes this like thing that's affecting both of your guys' livelihoods, then it's like, I just feel this urge to go, man, let's do the safe space and bring this back in, drop that, and figure out some way to talk about the fact that there's a bunch of layers on both sides that people just don't understand why.
I'm going to ask you,
because I don't think he's lying. I think that it's just Well, in the moment where you said he dialed it back and was like, I only did this myself in that room,
Right.
I think is so opposite.
Okay.
But what is the reason why that happened is what he either can't say or just doesn't want to say or whatever. But it doesn't fucking matter that much too.
I got a question for you that I think that it's a little bit of an unfair question, but I'm going to ask it on behalf of the audience and the commenters.
Okay.
There's one person that could just come out and absolutely clear this up. Like, why do you think Red doesn't say anything about it?
Good point.
Somehow, some way. I mean, he could figure out a way to get it out to someone if he doesn't want to out himself. Why do you think Red has stayed quiet during all this? If he's the one that took the shot, initially killed or hit Bin Laden, like the story's always about Rob, but it's really always about Rob and Red. Like everyone, it's crazy. He's the most famous SEAL that no one knows about.
Yeah, it's cool.
It is cool,
and
actually.
it also it's like, I hate the argument between the silent professional thing or not, because by contract, we all were silent professionals because you would get fired if you talked about anything when you were that professional.
Right.
Now you're living your life. You actually are writing. You rode off into the sunset that the general public would like to think all of us go do and then just go live in obscurity, except it's not fucking Hollywood. We're humans. And so the sunset for us was the ending of that purpose and that career, and then not realizing that the sunrise is only going to come up. That's the next purpose.
Yeah.
And you're living, you did that. And so am I. I rode off into my sunset. The sun came up and now I'm living that. My answer to that is that he could find a way, I think, but he's busy as fuck, still doing something.
Right.
Right. And also, aside from that, he never needed the credit at all for any of it, probably for anything that he ever does, because some of us warriors will be warriors until we can't walk anymore.
Yeah.
And he's one of those. Like, I'm not one of those. Like, I can be if I need to, let's say like Civil War pops off or something and you move my family around or whatever, but
Right.
But like, I'm making ice cream. I'm not like still actively engaging adversaries and enemies.
Right.
By choice, but some guy's purpose is that. And these conceptions, like Hollywood conceptions of the public opinion being like, that's the most epic way to be, is like true. But there's been warriors of all different kinds over time that have been brutal warriors till the end, gentle warriors till the end, or not warriors at all, just warriors in a garden till the end in different ways,
Right.
like so many different ways. My point for him is that he doesn't need to, and he's probably fucking pissed that this thing is like potentially wrapping these guys back in. There's only two guys that wanted it, that part of their purpose is storytelling,
Right.
and that's okay.
Right.
And other guys don't have any interest in storytelling at all, and that's okay.
Right.
That's why, and I do think there is a way that he could be like, I'm just the first guy that shot him. I don't give a fuck at what moment his spirit left. That's what I think.
Yeah. And
I think that Rob, through the way that we all perceive his personality and ego, is also, he's going to defend this, right? But I don't think that he intends to like get those guys all have to get like under oath and go. Through with this.
Yeah,
like
I don't think so.
exposure of
I agree with you. I don't think so either. But again, I think some of the decisions he makes, I don't think he. It's just my opinion.
I
think they're like personal protection, like
could be
like choices that he makes, and he doesn't always look at the holistic part of this.
Personal protection happens if people are not ready to go change something,
because it's going to have effects, and people are going that want no part of this are going to get called in on this.
Exactly,
and that was Rob's doing. With the lawsuit. The lawsuit is going to force people who've want nothing to do with this to now become a part of it. And that's I hate that. I really do.
Yeah. It's difficult, but I think that like I said, that's why earlier I was trying to go, it's simple underneath all that. The brotherhood is the most important thing. And if you just figure out a way to go, hey, it doesn't need to be like public. We had the safe space of the whiskey around the fire, and we just went, hey, here's the full blown truth of everything that won't leave this little space. And you say, well, here's the truth of why I think it's important to get that right in some way. And we figure it out from there. That I think that will be an epic public story.
You line it up, and I'll be there, and you know that. Speaking of riding into the sunset, you rode into the sunset a different way.
Yeah.
And that is, you probably decided the veteran coffee community space was full.
It's funny because I'm doing coffee too, but like,
oh, you really?
We're doing like a private label, going online, but like I'm trying to. It's centered around the ice cream, and then we just have because the space that I had was big, and I was like, I got to do something a little more here, and it was bakery, coffee house, and ice cream.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's
just we're dabbling in the coffee, but we're only going to be competing in ice cream. But yeah, the coffee space is I love that. You guys everyone's crushing the coffee space. We took it over. Veteran owned.
It's such a huge space. There's so much room in it, and like anything else. I mean, what's the only question is what makes yours a little bit unique. Just carve out whatever makes yours unique and run with it.
I think so. What I identified was that there's a lot of brands that I respect. My mindset is I respect everybody's ice cream, but right now what's going on, and I'm noticing, and maybe I'm just too much into it in the world of social media, is influencers that are rapidly trying to discredit indulgent good ice cream and call it fake ice cream because they're more like health, like better for you brands that I like them. Like they're just milk, cream, sugar, and some sweetener, and no inclusions. And so mine is bold. It's like I like inclusions and chips and textures and things, and like it's naturally going to have more ingredients. We did the best job that we could starting out, but I know I'm going to have to go to war per se about this because we also know what's happening now. I'm in the food industry in the world of things where private equity owns all the majority of stuff we all buy. So there's an illusion of choice when you go into the grocery store. My way to battle that is to get in with my ice cream that's crafty. We have I've got culinary inspiration from all around the world from my travels. We're not starting with any crazy innovative flavors. There are some cool ones, but because it's such a competitive space, the barrier to entry is so difficult. The hardest two things to go into the CPG consumer packaged goods industry is that's all grocery stores and stuff, is frozen pizza and the indulgent in the ice cream aisle. It's the two hardest. Oh yeah. But what have we done in our lives is if you're going to go for it, you go for the hardest way. Yeah. So that's what I'm doing. And it's challenging. We're going to see how it goes. But I've chosen what's different about mine is that the purpose behind it, the mission behind it, the purpose being that I found a way through all of that combat and conflict and everything in my life in certain moments to realize how much these little moments of joy that I could bring to people with ice cream, just with this one tool, when there's babies at our cafe, we've had multiple times where the customers go, she's never had ice cream before. We're going to see what happens. And I now go, can you record the reaction? Cause it's always amazing. Yeah. It's like when you're born, you're like, wow, what's this world? And then you get a baby gets ice cream and they're like, it shocks their face. It's awesome. And I saw that in, orphans in different places that I visited and stuff like that, like in Africa and stuff. So that's all part of the story, and that's what's behind it. And so besides just, I thought that there's this huge section of just kind of bland and boring ice cream, private equity owned stuff that is now called frozen dessert if it has less than 10% milk fat. Okay. And when they say fillers and stabilizers, yes, but there's a spectrum for everything. So we use a couple stabilizers that are like the most natural. They're essentially just soluble fiber, no toxicity to it. They're actually good for your gut health, but those are being wrapped into some of the ones that are toxic. And these things they're inaccurate. They're like, if it has anything else besides milk, cream, and sugar, it's terrible toxic for you. You're like, no, it's not true. The Harvard study that they're all talking about, where actually ice cream, it penetrates like there's a thing, the way that the milk molecules react with the sugar and water molecules and the proteins that it has like a dopamine effect that's different than just an addiction dopamine effect that's actually good for you, right? And I'm like, I need to get the science right. Maybe we'll talk about it later, but they're finding that like it's actually a healthy thing for you. Obviously, if it spikes your insulin, it's like you don't want to crush, but the balance of the sugars, the milk proteins, the fat globules is such that it actually has a positive effect on you mentally as well.
Well, I think it does have an addictive effect because I'm a fat kid and I want ice cream every night around 11 p.m. to midnight.
But it might be a little better for you than you think, you know?
I've read those studies where they've come out and be like, actually, ice cream may not be bad for you at all. And that may be good for you.
But there's a little bit of also
like
justifying things that are healthy and addictive things, like even coffee. It's like you could crush coffee all day long, start to finish, not good for you.
Everything in moderation.
But there's some antioxidants in the coffee or whatever, you know, or even in like red wine. But that doesn't mean go crush 3 bottles of wine and go, I'm getting antioxidants. You know?
Right. No, when you get all nerdy with ice cream, there's a reason. There's a reason for this. You went to college. You went to ice cream. You went to ice cream college. Mm-hmm. Did you not?
I did. I'm Penn State, you know, like 7 weeks. I did a semester at Penn State, like a half semester.
I love that they have that there. That's awesome.
I brought myself to wear like a Penn State shirt, because like I said, I didn't get the college experience. I was a skateboard punk kid, but you know how people are about college, you know.
Well, where can they get the ice cream?
In my store in Virginia Beach, Be Free Craft Ice Cream Cafe, all made craft in the house. And we only use one stabilizer in there for creaminess effect, and it's guar gum. It's just it comes from a bean. So if you learn ice cream science, there's different ways, different things you can do that are interesting that shouldn't be passed up just because of false claims by some of the stuff I'm seeing. But so you can essentially say, natural, and I created the formulas, but here's what we successfully have done on both ends of the distribution brand and the cafe is no food dyes. We know those are toxic. We color with beet juice or spirulina and things like that are really easy to get. No corn syrup. A lot of those big brands use corn syrup. That's terrible for you. Okay. And no seed oils. So those are the 3 that I think should be prioritized in the industry if we want changes to happen. So like that's what I'm going to get after as I gain any kind of resource or power through this to make any change.
Right.
But you got to start. You got to make a start point. And the goal is we make a start point to what we claim and we improve by 1% every day the best we can, as opposed to the opposite where there's a brand right now that claimed, we're like USDA certified organic A2 dairy, this and that, and they can't scale, and so they've had to now make bad choices to change that, and they're going to lose all their customer base because they started as something that they can't follow through on and sustain. And so we're going to do it the other way around, where we start with a good level of health conscious ingredients decisions, but the goal is like it's indulgent also. The textures, the creaminess, not boring.
Right. It's what I pretend to be something.
Why would I even eat it at all if it was just bland and boring, but healthy for you? I can eat a salad.
Right. You can order online as well. Is that correct? Or
we're getting ready to launch soon. We're getting the logistics squared away with insulated boxes, but we'll be able to ship a certain amount nationwide with online orders. Yes. Okay. Awesome. And then the brand, we're in the middle of that right now, where we'll start announcing stores that we have opportunities to get on shelves with starting like this summer. And hopefully that works out. And 2027 is the bigger year for that. So, you got the shipping nailed down, because when I got those pints from you, they'd been on my front porch for hours. Yeah, and they were as cold as if they were still in the freezer. Yeah. So to get to, it's easy to say go get shipping and have a lot of awesome customers. They're like, or even people in other out of state that are like, when can we get the ice cream? Like, it takes a lot of work to get to that, and that was a lot of testing to shipments. But I'm glad it got there. I sent, Veteran with a Sign. What is it? Veteran with a Sign? Yeah. I sent him some, and I was like, "Hey, I'm testing out a box." Completely failed, and like show up all melted. So that's what I'm saying is I've had to do that and get embarrassed. Right. Andy at Half Face Blade sent him some when I first started out of my thing, and all for Christmas. He's like, I want to get like ice cream for everybody. I sent a whole thing, like $600 worth.
Oh,
It
Vito's a
all
great
showed
dude.
up like soup in a box. So still owe them a bunch of ice cream.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully I got it when you got it nailed down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we got a live to do tonight, which these guys would have already seen. But if not, they can go back and catch our live episode, which will get uploaded as well. Man, Chris, I can't thank you anymore for coming to the show, sharing your story, and again and hanging out later on the live. I really appreciate it.
It was awesome, man. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.